If you have a YouTube channel or are thinking about starting one, you're in the right place. In this series, I'm going to be covering everything about a YouTube channel, from microphones to advertising. And in this episode of this series, I will be covering cameras and video equipment. Over the years, I've made a lot of upgrades with my cameras, and they've been very carefully planned, and I did a lot of research each time to make sure I was doing the right thing. And even a couple times, I would buy a product, return it, and buy a different one until I was happy with it. So my recommendations throughout this video are going to be kind of mirroring my experience because I'm really happy with the path that I've gone through. This series is sponsored by Massdrop. Massdrop, of course, is the online group buy site where the community chooses the products, and Massdrop provides killer group buy discounts. They're a perfect sponsor for this series because they consistently have group buys of products for video producers like cameras, lenses, and microphones, and typical peripherals like headphones and monitors. Use the link in the description to check them out for yourself. When talking about camera gear, it's important to remember that content is king. When you look at big tech YouTubers like MKBHD with the Red Weapon, or Jonathan Morrison with the Sony FS7, it's easy to look at that and be kind of daunted at how nice of a camera gear they're using, but you gotta remember it's the quality of their content that provided them with the opportunity to make those investments. And no matter what camera you're using, content is the most important thing. And that leads me into my first recommendation. If you're tight on cash, the best camera you can get is already in your pocket. If you have a smartphone that was released in the last 3 years, you already have a very capable video camera to get started with. Really, I wouldn't recommend buying a point-and-shoot camera for under $400 if you already have a smartphone because the difference will be negligible. What you're looking at right now is being recorded on my iPhone 6s, and yes, there's really good lighting in here, but you can get good lighting for very little money that I'll talk more about later. And there will come a time where you want to buy a new camera, and if you can get around $400, you've got yourself a worthy upgrade. My immediate recommendation is the Canon T3i. It's a bare bones DSLR, and it's a perfect introduction into the world of DSLRs. And if you have a little more money, like $600, I would recommend the Canon T5i, but the T3i will do the job. As I said, the T3i is a solid bare bones DSLR. It was the first camera that I got. The reason I recommend it over any other DSLR for $400 is that it has a flip-out screen, which is extremely helpful if you're shooting alone and need to be in front of the camera but still want to see where you are in the frame. The T3i also doesn't have autofocus or live autofocus while you're recording video, but you get what you pay for. If you pay a little more and get the T5i, you do get that, but really you can make do without it. It's also worth noting that the Canon T3i, for some unknown reason, has been discontinued. You can still get it on eBay with a kit lens for around $400, or there are other options on Amazon that just don't have a flip-out screen. When it comes to DSLRs, one of the biggest advantages are the interchangeable lenses. The lens and piece of glass you put on your camera to look through are actually just as important as the camera itself. So whether you have the T3i, T5i, or some other DSLR, your next upgrade should be a solid lens. The 50mm f1.8 lens for around $100 is a classic first upgrade. I did it myself. But do note, it is a prime lens at 50mm, so you won't have any zoom functionality. For a little bit more money, you can get a wide-angle zoom lens, so you still have a wide angle, but you get a little bit of zoom functionality, and there are a ton of options in this field, so it's kind of hard to make one blanket recommendation. My first big lens purchase was the Tamron 17 to 50mm f2.8 lens for around $300 on eBay, and it served me very well, but again, there are a lot of options out there. And eventually you're going to want to make a camera upgrade, and I wouldn't recommend upgrading from the T3i to the T5i. They're just too similar and you won't see that much of a difference. Really, it depends on your initial budget. If you have a little bit more money at first, get the T5i over the T3i, but don't upgrade from one to the other. If you find yourself with around $1,000, you can pick up the Canon 70D, and that's actually what I'm using right now. The 70D still has that flip-out screen and is still a DSLR, but it has a much better sensor and has a vastly superior autofocus system than the previous cameras. I also picked up the Sigma 18 to 35mm f1.8 lens for my Canon 70D, and I absolutely love it. It's been dubbed the YouTuber lens, and it's just so sharp. It has a super low f-stop, so it captures a lot of light, and it's a wide-angle zoom lens, so you have that wide angle, but can zoom in and out if you need to. It does cost $800, but it's easily one of the best purchases I've made. Super clear video, smooth focus, fast autofocus, just an all-around fantastic lens. Alright, so that's it for the cameras I'm gonna cover. When you go over $1,500, all the options are very competitive and it's hard to choose between them, and I don't have personal experience at that budget. And this series is also for YouTube channels starting out and just growing, not really with $2 grand to spend out of the gate. But no camera is useful without proper lighting. This is what a shot looks like without enough lighting. You can kind of compensate for it by raising the ISO, but the ISO being raised also leads to gain and just an overall worse picture. And this is what a properly lit shot looks like. It makes a huge difference, and fortunately it's really easy to get good lighting. If you have spare light fixtures like lamps or desk lights or anything, if you just bring them around you and point them at you, that's light right there. And even if you don't have those, there's the free light of the sunlight, so you can just find a window, put the camera facing away from the window so the sunlight is on you, and you're good to go. Those are both very cheap, free ways of improving your lighting. If you're looking for something a little more professional, you're going to want to pick up some softboxes. Softboxes are essentially big lights with a white filter to diffuse the light so it's not too harsh on the subject. You can find a ton on Amazon. Seriously, there's a lot of options. I personally use this set of 2 for $70. It's not too expensive, but they do make all the difference. Alright, on to the final subject, tripods. The first tripod you should buy is just a cheap $10 or $15 one to hold up your camera with very limited like pan and tilt functionality. But eventually when you find yourself with a little more money, like $100, maybe $150, you should invest in a fluid head tripod. Fluid heads are what give you those smooth pans and tilts that are really appealing to look at, and I recommend this one from Magnus. You can find the link in the description. And honestly, with fluid head tripods, you get what you pay for. A $150 fluid head tripod will perform significantly better than a $70 one. And if you find yourself with even more money, around $400, a Manfrotto fluid head system will perform a lot better. I use the Manfrotto 502 fluid head paired with an aluminum Manfrotto tripod, and I don't see myself needing an upgrade for quite a while. Also, yes, I do have a Kessler slider on my tripod, but I really don't recommend them for people starting out. It adds another variable and requires a lot of skill and patience to get good shots. I just recently got mine, and I still have a lot to learn. So that wraps up this first episode. The next one will be about editing and editing software and getting a good workflow. So drop a like if you're enjoying the series. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to see more content. And as always, stay classy.